Welcome back to Noodletown News. All right, so just last Friday, on May 22nd, Hertz filed for bankruptcy protection. For those that don't know how big of a deal this is, it's a pretty big ass deal.
Wow.
This is a car rental company that had been around for more than a century. And usually, when we go on vacations, we will either use rental car companies or use Uber to get around. And with the recent lockdown, people don't go out as often, and travel is basically completely shut down. And that means there ain't nobody renting the cars out there, man.
Wow.
And before all of this, the company is already not doing too hot with the rise of ride-hailing companies like Uber and Lyft. Because like if you're traveling to big cities, with how painful it is to find parking spots and pay for the parking spots, and like the amount of headache that you will have if you're getting a car crash with a rental car or if your car gets stolen, like using Uber and Lyft is sometimes just a lot more convenient. So now with the coronavirus situation, just because Hertz isn't generating revenue doesn't mean it can stop paying its bills. For instance, a huge proportion of its car fleets of 500,000 cars are on lease and require maintenance, right? So there's also the interest payment for the money they borrowed from before. The lenders want Hertz to stick with the original plan of paying back the debt, and Hertz just couldn't. They proposed an alternative solution of maybe giving them a little bit more breathing room and allow the company to begin selling some of its cars to raise money to pay back the debt. But that's basically affecting the future revenue of the company to solve the current crisis at hand. And for the lenders, like they ain't charity. They have to calculate the risks too. And in the end, the company racked up about 19 billion in debt, and since it couldn't successfully negotiate a deal with the peeps that lent them the money, it filed for bankruptcy protection.
Wait. Didn't the government send in a shit ton of money? It helped the other big corporations. Didn't Hertz get any?
Nah, man, Hertz didn't get shit. And that's what I find funny. Like the $1 billion relief package mostly went into companies with actually solid balance sheets. Like those companies were going to have trouble anytime soon because they have so much cash on hand. But yeah, like for the people and companies that really need help, I guess the U.S. government and Federal Reserve were just like, here's a $1,200 check, and Hertz, you can go suck a dick, and you're on your own, mate.
Whoa.
And then yeah, but don't worry, Hertz is still going to be around. It's just it's stock investors that gets fucked. Like there are different types of bankruptcy filings, and Hertz filed for Chapter 11. There's also Chapter 7 and 13.
Oh, what's the difference?
Can you say like, oh, the fuck, is this a textbook or something? What's the difference?
Oh, the fuck? Is this a textbook or something? What's the difference?
And then you don't jump in with an explanation.
Well, according to my research, so with Chapter 11 bankruptcy, the company can still operate, but then they go on to the repayment plan to kind of gradually pay out all the creditors. In terms of Chapter 7, essentially the company just give up, right? Then they liquidate all the assets and literally just pay back the creditors with the money that's gathered from selling the assets, right? And anything that's excess just gets wiped out, right? But with Chapter 13, it's more strict. So you need to have a stable income and also have other criteria you got to hit. So it's much harder to file for Chapter 13. So most companies file for Chapter 11 and 13.
Okay, yeah, so Chapter 7 is basically like, yeah, I'm done for good. I'm getting the fuck out of here. Here's what I can repay. The rest, I don't care. So for Hertz, right, it still wants to stick around. It's still confident that it can make money after the whole Corona situation is over. So it filed for Chapter 11. It just meant that basically the company think that for the time being, it needs some help and it needs to restructure the debt. And when the company files Chapter 11, it will typically get delisted from the New York Stock Exchange and its bond ratings will plummet. A good example would be General Motors. It filed for Chapter 11 in 2009, so if you own its stocks before that, like you're completely fucked, man, because it would be worth nothing. Then it was able to get back on track and then get listed on NASDAQ again once it's out of the woods. But if you're old stock shareholder, like it had nothing to do with you, you're still fucked.
Wow.
So yeah, it's probably the same thing that's going to happen to Hertz. So the biggest shareholder of Hertz, Carl Icahn, aka the richest man on Wall Street, aka the Wolf of Wall Street,
Wow.
he had a stunning 39% ownership of this company, which is worth about 900 million before Corona and about 160 million after Corona.
Oh shit.
But this guy should be fine. He's rich as fuck. Recently, his most successful investment was buying the oil contracts at negative prices for his oil refinery company, CVR, which he had 70% of the shares. So what happened was the price of the monthly oil contract expired on April 21st, right? And a lot of people, including retail investors, were trading it. Because the prices were already very low, so people were trying to buy the dip, hoping that they could sell to someone else at a higher price before the expiry. However, as the expiry date approaches, like if you don't sell it, you have to actually buy the oil because the options are like contracts. And keep in mind, those options were around like $20 each. Each option is 1,000 barrels. So let's say you bought $2,000 worth of contracts, hoping to make a 10% return, which is $200, right? Now that's 100 options, and that's 100,000 barrels. Like, where the fuck are you going to store the oil if you don't end up selling it to someone else? Even if you're actually willing to buy that many barrels, you don't have the appropriate license registered that proves that you have the ability to pick up, transport, and store the oil. And you automatically be forced out of your trade by the expiry date by your broker, which means that you will be forced to sell your options no matter what price it was. And that's why the price went to negative, because there's just so many sellers on the market that eventually you have to be paying someone else to be selling the options to them.
Wow.
So in the end, it went to negative $40 per contract.
Wow.
So that means if you initially invested $2,000 in it, it's now negative $4,000. So instead of getting money from the people that bought the options from you, you're paying them $40 per option to take it off of your hand. So during an interview, Icahn said he tried to buy 1 to 2 million barrels of oil. But he didn't disclose how much he actually bought in the end. But he did say that they made quite a bit of money on that deal. So let's just do a bit of math here. So if he bought 1 million barrels at the price of negative $35, and with how the price jumped to about $30 per barrel now, basically he was paid $35 million to get 1 million barrels of oil, and now he can sell it for close to $30 million. That's about $70 million of gains right there.
Oh shit, but didn't this guy lose about $1 billion on that Hertz investment?
Oh, true. Oh yeah, now that's awkward.
Whoa.
I mean, I wish I have $1 billion to lose. Though.
All right.
That's